This is the first of two basic introductions to the Greek tense system. You'll cover more much later in the book, because there's a certain amount you need to know now that will see you through most of your Greek. So far, you've only read everything in the present tense. That gets extremely irritating extremely quickly, so it's great that you're now going to be able to move to talk about things across a wider time sphere. So what do we mean when we talk about tenses? Tenses tell you when things happen, and they're often talking about time spheres. So broad brush areas of time in which things happen. And we talk about, you've got three main time spheres to think about: past, present and future. How these are represented in Greek is slightly different to English. In the present, you do indeed have a Greek present tense. And you do indeed have a Greek future tense. When it comes to the concept of past, however, that's not a set of terms I want to hear you using of Greek, because what we actually have is a series of four things to think about. You have the imperfect, aorist, perfect, and pluperfect. We're going to ignore those last two at the moment and focus on those first four. So how do they work in Greek? They're really rather simple. Luo. We'll give you the first person singular endings here. You add your endings, as you've seen. For the future, you add a sigma, and then you add the endings you already know. Shall. For the imperfect, you add an augment onto the front, then you add some more endings. I was untying. For the aorist, you add that augment onto the front and the sigma into the ending, and then you add another set of personal endings. Greek tenses are marked by various additions: sigmas in the future and the aorist, and an augment in any past tense. How does this work as a whole? Luo, lues, lue, luomen, lueta, luusin. This is what you've learned already. Future, nice and straightforward. You just put that suffix in and you've got the same endings. So for the future, all you need to learn is that you add a sigma in. A colleague of mine has written a wonderful song, "A spoonful of sigma helps the future tense go down." I shall make the words available on the page to go with this. It helps cover all the different irregularities you can get in the future. But if you just remember the headline, "A spoonful of sigma helps the future tense go down," preferably sung along, then you might be able to cope better with your futures. The imperfect has a very similar set of endings, but it has minor difference. On, es, omen, ete, on. So notice you've still got me, emen, ete. You've still got es and it's just instead of ace and a, you've lost the iota. The first person singular is different, that often happens, but it's a very similar system to the present. So they are a little bit different, you do have to learn them carefully, but they're not a wholly new thing to think about. The aorist, elusa, elusas, eluse, elusamen, elusate, elusan. This time the endings are very similar again, but this time they've got an alpha in them all the way through. So you might actually say that sigma alpha is your marker of aorist rather than just sigma. It's just in that third person, it's eluse, you don't have the alpha, but everywhere else you've got the alpha. So sigma in the future, epsilon in the imperfect, and the epsilon and a sigma and almost certainly an alpha in the aorist. If you can remember those markers, you'll be able to recognise which tense it is, and once you know which tense it is, you'll see that the endings are actually relatively transferable.